want to welcome everyone to the Whatcom Asset Building Coalition's 2024 Annual Summit, and thank you all for being here. This is our very first summit that we've had since 2019, and we are so excited to be able to gather in person with all of you to learn about an asset building topic, connect with each other, and share some resources. I'd like to start this off with a land and labor acknowledgement. The Whatcom Asset Building Coalition operates on the ancestral homelands of the Nooksack, Lummi, and other Coast Salish peoples. We acknowledge our collective debt to the indigenous peoples of this land whose labor was forced and exploited. Please take a moment to expand your own understanding of the indigenous past, present, and future. We all know that an acknowledgement is not complete without an action, so I'm going to give a moment here for everyone to visit the link on the QR code where we have some collected resources for folks' further learning on the topic. So next I would like to introduce the Whatcom Asset Building Coalition. We are a community collaboration supporting the financial self-sufficiency through education and advocacy in Whatcom County. Our mission is to foster collaboration in the community and the financial stability of people in Whatcom County. There are 15 active asset building coalitions in Washington State. The Whatcom Asset Building Coalition is composed of local organizations and stakeholders collaborating to support financial literacy, financial wellness, and access to asset building opportunities. We do this by hosting meetings like this one, webinars on topics ranging from anything from tax filing resources to the history of racism in finance, the Community Resource Network, and our resource website. This is one definition of asset building provided by the Asset Funders Network. For those not familiar with the term asset building, assets generally fall into one of two categories: soft assets and hard assets. Soft assets are things like credit, banking, access to higher education, job skills training, and social networks. Hard assets are things like cash savings or a vehicle. Assets allow people to remain stable through financial emergencies, stay in their homes and neighborhoods, use good credit to purchase a car, find housing or employment, and save for retirement. This work wouldn't be possible without the following members who make up our advisory committee, representing agencies who each take up a piece of the asset building puzzle. If those folks who are in the audience could give a little wave, help identify them. Thank you all. So we are here today to take a deeper look at issues around consumer protection, scams, and fraud. We know that in the past 3 years, the amount of money lost to scammers has tripled in our state, and that is just what's been reported. Anybody can be a victim of fraud, and one of the goals of this event is to help break down some of the stigma around falling for a scam. We also know that vulnerable populations such as seniors, people with a lower computer literacy, and immigrants are impacted in greatest numbers. Today we'll cover some common types of scams and their identifiers, and what to do when we encounter them. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote presenter for today, Joe Cannata. Joe is a Managing Assistant Attorney General with the Washington State Office of the Attorney General. His work has focused on consumer protection, pyramid schemes, and data protection and privacy. Prior to joining the Washington Attorney General's office, he investigated and litigated corporate fraud at the California Department of Justice. Prior to working in government, he represented clients in commercial litigation, including patent cases, class action, and general contractual disputes. All right, Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Edith mentioned, my name is Joe Cannata. I'm with the Washington Attorney General's office. It's my pleasure to be here today. The agenda looks pretty interesting, so I'm excited. I'm also pretty impressed that most of you chose to be inside on what's turning out to be a beautiful day this afternoon. In our office, we live and breathe fraud and scams, and I could talk about it every day, all day, but for most people, it's not something that people are particularly interested in or get excited about. And I think that you're all here sort of demonstrates how big the problem has become and is getting. As Edith mentioned, scams are going up in general. People are reporting more and more that they're becoming victims of fraud. So I think that this room is full is a real reflection of the need out there and the scope of the problem. Today I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about my office and its consumer protection division. I'm here with my amazing colleague Elena in the back, who's manning one of the tables. She'll also be on the panel later today. Then I'm going to spend most of my time talking about scams, some of the trends, some of the signs we see, and some of the pitfalls that people encounter out there. And then finally, I'll wrap up by providing some additional resources and answering any questions that you all might have. Every so often, I am going to pull you, the audience, and ask you some questions. Mainly, it'll be to break things up so I'm not talking at you the entire time. But there's usually a point to the question, so please bear with me, and don't be shy in raising your hand. It'll make things more interesting for everyone. So with that, before I dive in and specifically talk about our work, I wanted, by show of hands, to know how many people here have actually ever interacted with the Washington Attorney General's office before? Okay, maybe 4, maybe 5. So our office's mission is to provide legal services to the state of Washington and protect the rights of its people. Essentially, we are the law firm for the state. Most of our divisions provide legal advice to other state agencies. We don't actually represent individuals, so in some ways I'm not surprised that so few of you have ever interacted with our office before. In essence, other government agencies are our clients. But like I mentioned, Elena and I are in the Consumer Protection Division, which is a little bit different. Our mission is a little more focused and specific. Our mission is based on our authority under the Washington Consumer Protection Act, which is a law that prohibits businesses from engaging in deceptive or unfair acts. There are 3 ways we really try to effectuate our mission. First is through enforcement and litigation, which is what I do. The second is through consumer complaint resolution. And third is through consumer education. These 3 mechanisms make up what I view as the 3 legs of our consumer protection stool. And so since I work in the enforcement leg, I basically investigate and litigate unfair and deceptive acts and practices. But a large part of our division works in our Consumer Resource Center, which is an amazing resource which helps resolve consumer issues, hopefully without ever needing litigation at all. So the Consumer Resource Center informally helps resolve complaints between the people, consumers, and businesses at no cost to either party. There's a general dispute resolution process and 2 very focused programs to help resolve 2 very specific types of problems. So before I dive into the dispute resolution process, I did at least want to mention these 2 specific programs because not many people know about them. First, our office administers what's called Washington's Lemon Law. It essentially has to do with new motor vehicle warranty issues, and this includes arbitration, education, and manufacturer and dealer enforcement. The second really specific program we have is called the Manufactured Housing Dispute Resolution Program. This helps manufactured and mobile home tenants essentially resolve disputes with tenants and landlords. So these are actually very valuable resources for very specific subpopulations. If any of you or your constituents ever need help in these areas, I would highly recommend you check out our website because there are more details on these programs there. But going back to our more general dispute resolution process. So what happens is essentially this, what we call the CRC, the Consumer Resource Center, they resolve disputes through an informal complaint resolution process. It's meant to be more friendly than my area of the office where we come out and investigate and litigate. And I'll have more statistics later, but on average, our office is able to resolve 2 out of every 3 complaints it receives in a generally favorable way. So one of the main things I hope everyone here takes away or walks away with is the idea of if you ever have a bad experience out there with a business, feel you've been dealt with unfairly, or the business is engaged in something illegal, please file a complaint with our office. It's just really important. We can help. We have helped many people in the past. And for me, on the enforcement and litigation side, it also helps me because it helps us see trends and identify those really bad businesses that keep popping up over and over in the complaint reporting process. So just to provide a little bit more detail on what happens once we get a complaint, and we take them in any form. We take written complaints, we take them online, we even take them over the phone through our call center. Once we intake the complaints, they're evaluated, triaged. Sometimes they're actually referred to other agencies which might be more appropriately situated to help. and then they're usually assigned to one of our staff, and then our staff essentially works as the go-between between the consumer and the business, really trying to get the business to respond to the consumer. We just essentially facilitate that communication, and then if the business does do something to fix the problem, we obviously let the consumer know, and then close the case. So before I turn to some of the specifics, I had another poll question for people. Who here feels like they've ever been treated unfairly by a business, had a very bad experience, or just felt that they got ripped off? Okay, that's not surprising. Now, keep your hands up if you actually reported it. So, okay. This is very common. We believe that complaints are, like today's show, is really underreported. So these are the numbers of the complaints that people actually do report. I'm just going to pause and let people, hopefully you can read it all, but I can also summarize, just digest the volume of complaints that come in. Last year, there were roughly 46,000 complaints that our office processed. And the year before that, it was roughly 45,000 complaints. So a small uptick in the past few years. We're also seeing more written complaints and less telephone calls. That makes sense. It's just more efficient for people to hop online whenever they want rather than trying to call us during business hours. And we're seeing a small increase in the amount of savings to consumers. And so the 17 million and the 16 million in savings, what this means is the savings is this number is the amount of money returned to consumers through the dispute resolution process. So not every complaint is resolved favorably. Some companies just really refuse to communicate at all, even when our office gets involved. But for those that do, oftentimes we are able to get refunds or some sort of money back to the consumer. So we do really, really try to emphasize this every time we do any sort of education or community outreach. Please report, encourage other people to report when there are problematic practices out in the marketplace. And I think as the hand showed, 45,000 is a lot, but this is probably a fraction of, probably reflects a fraction of the amount of problems actually out there, since most people, we think, don't actually report when they have a problem. Okay, so that was a lengthy lead-in to more specific discussions of scams. Obviously, I'm very proud of what our office does and what the division does. You can go on and on about it. But there's actually a reason why I want to kind of go into so much background into what our office does. And it's going back to the overall structure of our division and the way we try and protect consumers. And it's essentially the three-legged stool. Litigation/enforcement, complaint resolution, and consumer education. So these stats, I think, help understand the scope of the problem. And, as a litigator, if I'm actually investigating and litigating, the problem has gotten very, very bad. I handle between 5 and 10 cases at any particular time. The Consumer Resource Center, they're a little bit closer to the front lines. It's not as hostile, so they're able to process a lot more, but even they're processing a huge amount of complaints. We're going to the third piece of consumer protection, in terms of education and awareness. The main reason we're here today is to try to help people not fall for the scams in the first place, because ideally we want these numbers to go down, right? We want there to be fewer and fewer people that have to report problems. And that's what the third and final educational aspect piece is. Okay, so moving on to the main topic, scams. I don't know how many of you remember the movie Jerry Maguire. It was over almost 30 years ago now. I have to admit, I saw it in the theater, and I have a very, very distinct memory of being a teenager and seeing Tom Cruise yell at the screen, "Show me the money." And that's really what scammers want from you. They want your money, and they want it fast and as close to cash as possible. There's some interesting charts over there which sort of track I think they're pulled from the FTC, the way people are paying for things when the fraud occurs. But essentially, scammers want you to provide them money in a way that makes it really hard to trace and unwind. So these methods of transfers are sort of check all those boxes. So for wire transfers, the money is gone instantaneously into the fraudster's bank account. They're very hard to trace and very hard to recover. Gift cards are even worse. They're basically cash. What fraudsters will do is they'll instruct you to buy gift cards and read them, the numbers off the back, and that's essentially converting it to cash. It's impossible to recover. Venmo and PayPal. So peer-to-peer payment apps are tricky. If you look at some of the posters over there actually break down kind of by generation how people are paying for things. And so for basically everyone over 30, the main way people pay for things is by credit card. But there's a cohort for people 20 to 30 where, actually, according to the chart, the main way they pay for things is by peer-to-peer apps. And these apps, like Venmo, like PayPal, like Zelle, like Cash App, they were originally intended to be used amongst friends and family and not for business transactions. If you actually read the terms and conditions, that's what they say. They say, this product is meant to be used for friends and family and people you trust. They weren't really meant to be used for business transactions, which unfortunately they're sort of it's moving more and more in that direction. But essentially, if someone is encouraging you to pay for something only through a peer-to-peer app, you should be very, very, very cautious. Cryptocurrency, by design, cryptocurrency is anonymous and difficult to track. And then finally, fake online marketplaces. These are when scammers will create a fake online marketplace where they can receive payment. It makes it look a little bit more legitimate than just asking for money outright. And then they'll ask them to send money to their online marketplace or use a third-party payment processor. And again, this will make it very, very difficult to trace and unwind. So those are the different ways scammers prefer to receive money. Again, they're all very similar to cash and hard to track and unwind. What they also often want more and more these days, as things have shifted online, is your personal information, primarily for identity theft. The information itself has value to the scammers. I mean, you can actually go on the dark web and purchase other people's personal information, but it's actually more valuable to them as a way to gain access to other things of value, essentially by stealing your identity, which can lead to them opening up credit cards or hijacking some of your accounts. So there isn't a great definition of what personally identifiable information is, but it's usually information that that you would normally use to identify yourself, and that when other people have it, they can use it to masquerade as you. So things like your name, social security number, date of birth, medical information, account numbers, account passwords. Mother's maiden name is such a common account password that's in itself is often considered personal identifiable information. And then more recently, biometric information. But there's more to this than just that information. In response to increasing identity theft, many businesses, legitimate businesses and services, will require you to essentially create a token or a verification code, essentially setting up two-factor authentication in order to interact with your own accounts. And so this token will usually be emailed or texted to you in order for you to access something. And increasingly, scammers are also convincing people over the phone to provide these tokens, which circumvents sort of the point of multi-factor authentication. You should just always remember that no business will ever ask for this over the phone. It's always inputted kind of at the time in the service that you're trying to access, either the website or the app. So money and personal information is usually what they want. And so, I'm going to talk now about how consumers actually fool people. I have another poll question for everyone. So raise your hand if you've ever received an email or text from the post office, UPS, or Amazon warning you that there's a problem with your delivery. Okay, this was really common. It started becoming really common about 2 to 3 years ago. It's not actually how these services, they never actually bother to notify you that there's something problem with your delivery. So it's basically always a scam. And in my opinion, scammers are often most successful, this is just my opinion, because they take advantage of simple things that most of us have in common. And these things would be fear, need, and just that we're all really busy. So fear, there's a common term, FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Scammers use the fact that most of us want to grab an opportunity rather than watch it go to frame things as being for limited time only, act now, act quickly. So this does two things. One, it kind of incentivizes you to do it. And then it also encourages you not to take much time to actually think about what you're doing or think things through. They also, and this is a little bit more of a recent trend, take advantage of the idea that most of us are afraid of losing money. And so a new scam or new-ish scam involves scammers convincing people that their accounts are at risk, either a bank account or some other type of account, and they actually need to move their money out of this vulnerable account somewhere safer. And this is nearly almost always a scam because no bank or legitimate business will ever tell you to move your money to protect your money. They'll tell you to change your passwords, set up a new account with them. Like, they want your business, they want to keep your business. They're not going to tell you to move it somewhere else. And we often see scams increasing when the economy is bad. When people are economically vulnerable, oftentimes they're a little bit more desperate and more willing to engage in riskier behavior or be more receptive to opportunities that are essentially too good to be true. And finally, scams are a numbers game for the scammers. Fraudsters, they might be trying to scam hundreds of thousands of people at the same time. It just takes a few people who are too busy to really look at the link that they're clicking or the text to click it to make it worth their while. And so they really take advantage of the fact that all of us, our inboxes, our text messages, they're all very full and overflowing. So those are some of the high-level things that I think the scammers take advantage of and why they're successful. Here are some more concrete signs of a scam. This is pulled basically from the literature that Elena has in the back in terms of signs of a scam. We've already talked about unconventional payments and personal information, so I'll talk a little bit about these other signs of a scam. So the first, unsolicited contact. There are many ways that scammers initiate contact. And the calls, text messages, more mail, spam, pop-up browsers, Windows, social media. Actually, also in just the regular mail, there's a lot of deceptive mailers out there. But what they frequently have in common is that in addition to being sort of unsolicited, they're usually offering you something or telling you need to act, whether it's a job, prize, or other opportunity that sounds too good to be true. Similarly, they often have a very underlying tone of urgency, or like you need to act now. And sometimes it even veers into sort of threatening, like suggesting like really bad things will happen to you if you don't act now. There was there was a warrant out for your arrest, or like you owe taxes. These are some of the other ways that they encourage you to act. And then in terms of secrecy/trust, this is kind of interesting. In order to succeed, scammers, they need you to do something, right? So they need to gain your trust either in the short term, immediately, or even in the long term. So some of the scams, they're trying to gain that trust over a long period of time, or they're trying to pretend to be someone who you'll trust immediately. Either way, they often want you to do or make a decision without discussing it with other people. Essentially, the more people that are aware of it, aware of your decision, the more likely someone will realize it's a scam and sound the alarm bells. So fraudsters are often trying to isolate you to keep you talking with other people, or assure you that you can make the decision on your own without your spouse or other loved ones. If that's the case, you should be very, very cautious, right? There's a million reasons why they'll say, you shouldn't discuss it with other people. Like it's a limited opportunity. It's just for you, that kind of thing. So you should always be very cautious when it feels like someone is encouraging you to keep something a secret. And in these cases, the best thing you can do is slow down, take a break from the interaction, and instead talk to someone you actually know in the real world and trust. Sometimes just describing what's happening helps us all kind of understand and see the warning signs. And then, of course, oftentimes other people will be able to realize things that you won't. Okay, so I'm going to now turn and talk about some common scams we see frequently. But before, I have another poll question for everybody. Has Best Buy's Geek Squad ever emailed you about a subscription renewal or needing to fix any of your electronic devices? Interesting. This one not as popular as it used to be. Okay, so there are many types of scams, and this includes online shopping scams. investment scams and imposter scams. I was really pleased or happy when I was looking at the charts over there, and the data over there matches the data we have, which is that imposter scams are the #1 type of scam. So that's the scam I'm going to focus on today. So imposter scams. These are the highest reported types of fraud. These are scams where the scammer, in order to gain that trust more immediately and not have to build it out over time, they're pretending to be someone you trust, someone else, someone you might know, a business you might actually do business with, or a business that's reputable and that you trust. So the imposter scams aren't always necessarily about the product or item. What they're really about is the person themselves or the scam. And so imposter scams is a broad concept. There are many different types of imposter scams itself. The most common imposter scam last year involved scammers pretending to be well-known businesses, sort of the familiar company scam. This might involve companies like Best Buy telling you your computer security is at risk and trying to remotely access your device. It might be scammers pretending to be from your bank or a company that you have a regular business with telling you there's a problem with your account. Again, in these cases, the goal is usually to try to get your account and financial information so that they can then go and access your accounts. Government imposter scams are a little bit different. They were the #1 type of imposter scams a few years ago, mainly during COVID. And these usually involve fraudsters pretending to be from government agencies. So scammers were pretending, and they actually still do, pretend to be from the IRS, claiming that you owe the IRS money, and then if you don't pay your back taxes, you'll be subject to legal action. They also tended to be, they're also fraudsters pretending to be from the Social Security Administration, claiming there was a problem with people's benefits, their accounts, or promising to increase their benefits. And it's not just individuals that scammers target. They actually also target other businesses themselves, particularly small businesses. In Washington, we've noticed that there's a lot of government imposter mailers that are basically sent to anyone who registers as a business with the Department of Revenue. So they're basically taking the registration requirements, which is unfortunately all public. Companies, when they register, that information is public, so that way consumers know that that business is legit. But they take the information that's publicly available and then just mail every single new business various business licensing type services. So they might mail a business, we will handle your license registration, your annual license registration for $100. It's actually very easy to do this on your own, and it only costs $35. Or they'll email businesses saying, you have to file your board minutes with the government. That's actually not even required. So it's sort of a more unusual trend where it's not just individuals that are being targeted, but also small businesses. And it's become such a problem that our office has a small business protection initiative in which we're trying to essentially bring more litigation against companies that do this. Charity imposters. These are a little bit more straightforward. It's essentially fraudsters pretending to be from either a real or a fake charity to get you to contribute. And then finally, the friends and family scam. This usually, unfortunately, involves elderly victims, where scammers pretend to be usually a grandchild or other relative who is in some sort of emergency situation and needs financial help. There are concerns that this type of scam will increase because of artificial intelligence, which is allowing people think that it'll make it easier to duplicate people's voices. So it's not as common as the others, but it's something that we're concerned about. And I'm going to talk specifically about romance scams on another slide. Oops. Oh, you know what? I think I might have lost that slide. But romance scams are essentially they're sort of a hybrid because the fraudsters don't come to you as someone you already know, but they're trying to generate a relationship over time. And so while they're not the most common type of imposter scam, they do tend to lead to the largest losses. they have a very long time frame. And so oftentimes when someone is a victim of a romance scam and believes they've interacted with someone who they now have a relationship, they're often victimized in other ways for other types of scams. So it's a little bit like a springboard for multiple types of scams. And in the media, they've coined a pretty graphic term for this called pig butchering. It's like you're feeding the pig for slaughter. Essentially, scammers will attempt to convince their victims that they're their friend, or in some case, romantic interest. And then over time, once the scammer has successfully groomed the victim, they'll have some sort of story where, like, oh, this emergency has come up, or this opportunity has come up. We need money now. These types of scams are enabled by social media and the internet, and essentially the fact that many times people are meeting for the first time online rather than in the virtual world, and some relations are mainly online. So we offer some tips for people when they're interacting online with strangers or people that they just met. So the first tip is to never send money to someone you haven't met in person. This is true even if they send you money first. A lot of times the scammers will send a little bit of money to sort of establish the trust, but then later on ask you for more to essentially exploit the trust that they developed. The second tip is just to talk to someone you already know and trust about what's happening. It can be easy to miss things when you're the one directly involved, so the perspective of someone not directly involved can often be very, very helpful. The third tip is to take things slow, ask questions, and look for inconsistent answers. And then the final one is, and this one I actually didn't know about until recently, is trying a reverse image search of the profile picture. You can actually put a picture into a search bar, and it'll sort of give you results associated with that picture. And if those results are associated with another name or with details that don't match what you've been told, it's probably a scam. So taking a step back to wrap up on the imposter scams, I did want to flag one last sort of more recent trend. So I've described these as pretty discrete types of scams and different tactics, but scammers are now actually combining these tactics and using multiple party imposter schemes/scams. So the scam might start out by someone posing as a business that you do business with, and then they'll actually route you to another scammer pretending to be a government agency or a bank. And just sort of the more people involved, the more real it feels, because how could every single person I've been talking to in the past hour be lying to me? It's an interesting development, and one that, again, whether it's one person telling you something or a tag team approach, just to be cautious when you see the underlying issues such as unsolicited contact, unusual ways of paying, and things like that. So there are those are imposter scams. There are two other types of frauds that I wanted to talk about and outline for folks, but they're not imposter scams, but similar to romance scams, they're people coming to you as strangers and trying to build trust from scratch. So I have another poll question to get people thinking. Now that the weather is nicer, how many of you have had a door-to-door salesman come by and offer services related to your home? Okay, this actually just happened to me about 2 weeks ago. 2 companies in one day for pest control, pest and bug spray. So oftentimes, when the weather turns nicer, we see an uptick in home improvement scams. And so there are crews of roofers, pavers, and day laborers that just sort of travel from city to city, driving around neighborhoods, mobile home parks, looking for victims. Sometimes they offer to pave your driveway, repair your roof, or paint your house with supplies left over from another job, and offering a really, really good rate. This is often just a scam. The repair work is usually done very quickly, the quality is poor, and the repairs usually will cost more than the estimate that was given, and usually there's no recourse if they did a bad job. So these are some of the warning signs for illegitimate home improvement companies, right? Because there are some companies that they do a good job. So how do you know the good ones from the bad ones? A lot of times they don't have Washington plates, or their vehicles are unmarked. A lot of times they won't be able to give you a business card. the price. If the price seems too good, that's also probably a dangerous sign. If they want payment up front or accepts only cash or other unconventional payments, that's also another warning sign. If there are no written estimates or contracts, that's frequently a bad sign. And then similar to not having a business card, if the people that show up at your door can't offer any references, that's also not a good sign. Okay, the last type of fraud I wanted to talk about in detail is the advanced fee fraud. And this one actually showed up on the charts over there a couple times also. So this is a form of fraud. It's called a confidence trick. The scam typically involves promising a share of a large sum of money in return for a small upfront payment, so which the person will claim will be used to obtain the larger sum. And so, unfortunately, if a victim makes that small payment, the fraudster will usually either invent more fees that need to be paid, or they'll just disappear. And the stories often involve sweepstakes, lotteries, inheritance, grants, scholarships, social media contests, legal payouts like a settlement, investment payouts, or job opportunities. So the general advice is if they're asking you for a small payment first, and it promises for something larger, it's a very, very risky type of opportunity. There are many, many other types of frauds. I think we've gone into many of them that are similar. So I think I'm just going to throw these up on the screen so people can take a look at, because I've been talking at you for a while. But they all, again, have many things in common. They're very similar to the scams I have talked about. And so takeaway message after, if you see something, file a complaint. These are the other takeaway messages I'd like everyone to remember from today. Unsolicited contact. If there's a link from someone you don't know in an email, text, please do not click the link. If they're asking you for personal information or money for that matter, or to move money, please be careful. Again, unconventional payment. I was heartened by the fact that on 2 of the 3 sort of cohorts in the charts over there, the number one way they paid was by credit card. That's normally, like, normal businesses accept credit cards. So when they're asking you for things other than by credit, you should be very wary. Fourth takeaway is they're very good at putting pressure. Don't feel pressure to act now. Like, if it's a real opportunity, it'll still be there the next day. And then finally, if it feels like they're trying to encourage you to do something on your own without talking to other people, be very, very careful. So we do have a lot of additional resources. Elena has a booth over there with many handouts that cover some of these same topics. There are other, so the FTC couldn't be here, but they have a ton of stuff. In fact, I think most of the stats on those charts are from the FTC. They have their own reporting mechanism. So you could not only report a complaint to us, you could also report it to the FTC, although all of ours are folded in to the FTC's as well. But there's also, in terms of identity theft, the FBI sometimes can be a resource. And then there's a credit reporting that's available. And then, for spam, if you get a spam text, you can report it by actually texting that text to this agency that tries to help combat spam. And there's our phone number, our website. Again, in here is a more detailed screenshot of what our page looks like if you want to file a complaint. So we're the government. Things don't always look the prettiest, but there's a lot of substance there. So it's actually the have a consumer issue area. If it were up to me, it'd be way bigger to file a complaint. But yeah, doing it online is generally the easiest. So that's our office. That's the work we do. I'm definitely available to answer any questions. I'm actually really curious to know what you guys want to hear about, if there's anything else I can talk to you about.
Who are these scammers? Are they usually individuals or groups organized or?
They're usually groups. I mean, the person on the phone will be an individual, but I mean, we don't know this for sure, but there are certain regions of the country, of the world, where a lot of these tend to be coming from, and so they're usually just well-organized groups. Sometimes it might even be related to organized crime in terms of funneling the money. But yeah, we don't have a whole lot of information on that. But my guess is that large groups of well-organized people, in part because they're so similar, right? So it's sort of like the reverse of a business call center, where there's probably a lot of people working off the same scripts provided to them by like their boss, right? And their job is to like make 100 calls a day, try to run through the script. If one of those people, if they get one hit, that's a good day for them.
Do you work with the Better Business Bureau at all? Is there like a back and forth relationship?
That's a really good question. We don't work with them directly. We do mine their, we have access to, actually I think it's public. So their database for complaints is publicly available. So we'll access their complaint system to help us investigate. But I don't think we've ever worked directly with them.
I have clients that receive mail that say that they're from my company and they're not. What is the best way for me to report that back to you?
Do you mind what area, industry you're in? Or
I'm a mortgage banker.
Interesting.
And my clients are getting things I just received today, in fact.
So they're imposters pretending to be you.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They've got all the information because, of course, it's all filed publicly with the state, and very threatening type letters that you'd need to call us now. We've been trying to contact you about your mortgage. You're going to lose your home, that kind of thing.
So I would recommend you file a complaint with us, and then is there a state agency that you have that you essentially annually renew, like a license or?
The DFI.
DFI. I would also report it to DFI.
Okay.
Is there any sort of, I guess, statute of limitations on like reporting it to you and maybe trying to get a resolution, or do you guys want to know about it anyway, even if no resolution is possible?
There's practical challenges in us pursuing something that's very, very old. Legally, there's none. So statute of limitations can have a legal definition. As the government, we're not particularly bound by any statute of limitations, but it is harder because it's more likely that the company or fraudster that you're concerned about is no longer operating. But I would still err on submitting the complaint. The one caveat I guess I should mention is, so a couple of years ago we had to so we have our general complaint portal. For robocalls and robotexts, getting untimely complaints about those was very challenging because this isn't an area that I know about, but I, from what I understand, our ability to trace back spam calls, there's a narrow window of time in which we can actually do that. So there's a different robotext, robocall complaint portal, sort of to address that problem because the pace has to be faster for those. So that's an area that's particularly challenging if it's, say, like a spam robotext you got, more than 3 or 4 months ago, essentially.
Two-part question. Can you report a scam on behalf of someone else? And can you report that just off of suspicion?
I think Elena's saying no. Actually.
Thank you. No, you cannot file a consumer complaint on behalf of someone else. It does need to come in their own words, because if you go and visit our website, or even if you were to print off, say, our PDF complaint form, at the very bottom there is a disclaimer that they have to sign, stating that everything that the information that they've given our government agency is true and correct to, as much of their knowledge that they have regarding whatever occurred. So it does need to come on behalf of the affected consumer, from the affected consumer directly. And if we do get a complaint that someone has filed for someone else, it will become confidential because the person didn't sign it who was affected, and then you'll be notified that it's confidential, it's not gonna go anywhere until the person who was affected has given us permission to work that complaint. So, long answer for no, don't file for anyone else. File for yourself and have them file for themselves as well.
Do you see much in as far as recovery of funds? Do individuals see that through working with you, or is it more about sort of tightening up their accounts and knowledge and things like that?
So we do often, many times consumers get some sort of refund or some sort of monetary return. I didn't do the math. So last year there were about 45,000 and 17 million went back out to consumers. So that's at least maybe $100. I don't know. I can't do the math on the spot, but it's not a huge amount, but it's not nothing. So it does happen, but some companies just never respond. So it doesn't always happen.
Once this has happened to someone and their information has been now on the dark web or whatever, what can they do to protect themselves after the fact?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So unfortunately, once your personal information is out there, it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Usually, if it's out there because of, say, like a data breach, or sometimes companies, well, let me step back. If it's out there because of a data breach, oftentimes the companies will give you free credit monitoring or some sort of service, some sort of protection service. To the extent possible, sort of the self-help approach would be to, if you know which specific account, which specific password might be exposed, if other accounts have that same information, sort of changing that login, doing what you can to sort of quarantine the information that's been out there. You can put a freeze on your credit. On one of the other sites, I had the credit reporting site. All three credit reporting agencies can put a freeze on your account, which makes it harder for someone to open a credit card in your name. There might be others. Okay, yeah.
That was annualcreditreport.com.
I have friends, family out of state. Is a lot of this information going to be similarly applicable?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. I have friends and family out of state. Will a lot of this information still be applicable?
A lot of states have, so in terms of the scams, for sure. The types of scams, the numbers, the volume, it's a nationwide problem, right? In terms of reporting, most attorney general's offices have a very similar complaint process, intake process. So I would recommend that they go to their attorney general's website. The FTC is national, so that's another option.
Thank you so much. And will you be around to continue answering questions?
Yep, I'll be around. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, next up, I'm going to invite Colby up to lead us through a scam activity.
So thank you everyone for having me here. I am the systems administrator and help desk lead at Opportunity Council. So I have a fair share of experience in this topic and have worked for many places over the years that have also experienced things related. I'm here to help kind of inform folks and ways to avoid scams by digital threats. There are a variety of ways, from text messages, phone calls, etc. Although I think email, in my personal opinion, is the most common way to try to target folks. In a day and age where workers and just your life consumes you and you're stretched extra thin, it is easy to expect it to be doing more with less and to not take that pause, and it's easy to overlook things. So I want to remind everyone of a few things that I emphasize at work all the time and with all of my new hires. Trust your gut. Think before you click. The smell test. You know, like that meat that's been in the back of the fridge for a few extra days? Trust it. Things that I stress to my staff are to always verify the email address. Look at that domain name. It's easy to create a domain name that looks all but identical. I have seen a common threat that was successful where the O in a word, which was Whatcom, was replaced with a 0. That was a successful scam. And so it's one thing that you always want to do, certainly in a business platform, where you look at that email address and make sure that it is the sender that you believe it to be, although that's not a 100%, meaning somebody could have their mailbox compromised. So that's not, doesn't tell you that it's 100% safe. Inspect links. When you're using a computer, you can move your mouse over a link to see where that link is actually going. You cannot do that on a mobile phone. So I always stress to my staff to use the mobile phone with regards to email as kind of a one-way direction. If you get something, sure, read it, but don't act on it. If you need to send something, go right ahead. Because it's much, much harder to verify that email address. You can't inspect links, at least that I'm aware of, on a mobile device. So it's much easier to fall into a trap that way. The most dangerous action, of course, is to open an attachment or click on a link. So if you don't know, don't do it. If you weren't expecting it, don't do it. If you receive a link from, Facebook, Amazon, etc., and you think, oh, this could be real, don't click on the link. Go to Amazon.com or go to your whatever website it is, your bank account, and just log in separately. If there's an action that you should be taking, it's going to be available to you in that platform without using the link that you received in that email. Confirming the sender is real. Pick up the phone. I hate the phone, but sometimes you've got to do it. And anytime I get phishing emails that are sent from real mailboxes sent in through my help desk systems, I will call the places. I've called a school district in some other state recently to let them know that they had a mailbox that was compromised because everything lined up. This person had their mailbox compromised and they were blasting out how they got us, no idea, but you pick up the phone sometimes as a way to reach them because they can block those incoming emails, or the bad guy could communicate with you over those emails. Okay, I think I've covered, and there was so much information covered before that most of what I was going to say is all kind of covered here, and I want to do an interactive game and bribe you all with lovely stickers that have unicorns on them to participate. Now, there's only 10 stickers, so at least maybe 10 of you will jump in and want to come along. Do you want me to click along for this, or do you want to? What would be the best for you? I can do it. It's over the shoulder. It's not bad. So, and as far as common day folks, probably not something you've ever looked into before, but I suspect most small businesses, all the way up to large businesses and nonprofits, look at the education piece. We emphasize building the human firewall. Think before you click. We even have stickers that say think before you click, because that's really the only line of defense, which unfortunately is also the most vulnerable. Your brain right up here. Anytime that you can stop and think or pause and ask help, just like he was mentioning with asking, your friends or colleagues or your family about something, the better off you're going to be if you're not certain. And so this is a phishing game. It's going to go through and help identify phishing scams. So raise your hand, jump out, say whatever to try to advance through and test your knowledge. So most of this we don't need to read. It's just, saying that trademarks are used in here, but it's only for this content or this reason. How do you spot phishing? We're going to go through that. How to play, you got to click here, but don't worry, I'll do the clicking for you. And a practice run. So here's where we get to really dive into the meat and potatoes and in a practice round. So we're going to look through this email, and there's little arrows here telling us what to look at. This top one, does the subject line relate to the message? Who is it from? The date and time. To play this game, you'll need to read each email, social media post, text message, etc., and whether you think it's real or a fish. Beware of hidden links. And that hovering aspect I was talking about is hover here, and at the very bottom left corner, you can see that link kind of popping up. I think they come up more aggressively in the other examples here. So here's a subject. Cyber criminals will use the subject line to pique your attention and draw you into interacting with the rest of the email. Check that the subject line matches that of the content. Is it a reply to something you didn't request? Is it a forwarded message that doesn't apply to you? Were you expecting the message? Who is it from? This is what I was referring to with making sure that that email address is accurate. Is the sender someone you're familiar with? Look at the address from people you don't know or weren't expecting. Spelling errors or addresses that look slightly out of the ordinary. Cyber criminals often impersonate people you know by using look-alike email addresses. That's the one I was mentioning. Use your bookmarked site or a phone number you know is legitimate to verify the request from the source. I swear I wrote my notes before I went through this, but it is common tactics. When was it sent? If it was sent in the middle of the night, that's a red flag. Or, the wee hours of the morning. Oop. So look at the message that are not directed, or look out for messages that are not directed specifically to you. If the message creates a false sense of urgency, excitement, fear, negative consequences, or scare tactics, stop and think before you click. Again, my colleague can vouch for me. We've had those stickers long before this. If the messages are out of context or contain spelling or grammatical errors, or appear like they've gone through some sort of a translation service of any kind, that's another red flag. Be suspicious of social media messages from unverified accounts and offers that sound too good to be true. That prince in Nigeria is not going to make you a millionaire, I promise. If an email does not ask you to act on anything, click on a link or reply with sensitive information, and it is from a trusted organization that would interact with you in the course of business, then it may be legitimate. And then hover here, that's how the bottom left corner there is, you see that popping up. When you're on a computer and not in this kind of interactive session, it'll pop up right where your pointer is and show you where that link's going. Because oftentimes you'll get that email that says, click here, but you don't know, it's not click here, that's not the website, it's going to an actual URL. Okay, who's ready to get started? Have fun. Gonna get some interaction? Okay, thank you. All right, your friend Timothy sent you a message via social media. Is this a fish or is it legit? So it's from Timothy Clark in Cape Town, South Africa. It's got this lovely, lovely drawing. Check out this amazing band I found. I just had to share it with all of you. It's lovely. Well, got a lot of fish guesses. Anybody think it's legit? Well, this is a social media message, so there's not really an email address to see. And I don't see any links here. So I heard one at the end there. It says legit. They're not asking you to do anything. They're not threatening you to do anything. They're not telling you that there's an action you need to take. This is legitimate. So we can say that Timothy is your friend and you know him in real life. There's no urgency for you to act, just sharing some information, or a recommendation rather. No links or attachments. The message could have directed you to a fishy site. All right, next one up. A free phone sounds too good to be true, or is it? From Samsung fans in Johannesburg, South Africa. Lovely picture of an Android phone. Like, comment, and share options. Do you want a new phone for free? Follow these simple steps. Share this post, comment, thank you. And 3, go to samsungfans.com. Fishy. Correct. There are 3 red flags here. We'll just go through the show me real quick. Unverified social media accounts. They are telling you to take an action. And the URL did not go where it says it would go. At the bottom left corner, and I apologize that it's hard to see in this visual, but the bottom left corner shows www.free-phone202.lol. Okay, laptop protection from help desk or help desk tech, legit or phish, you decide. From home_access at your work, numbers at yourwork.com, subject laptop protection, VPN home access number 8902. And the body reads, laptop protections as you work from home. Please use our VPN to secure connections. Log in with your email and password. Click here. Thanks, Help Desk Tech. Yes. As a help desk member and manager, I will never sign something help desk tech. Here's another tip for you. Alrighty, here we've got suspicious activity or suspicious message. So a text message you've received that says, we have detected suspicious activity on your account. Please confirm your device immediately. Click this link, received at 1:14 a.m. I like that. I do also emphasize to just always be suspicious of email. A little suspicion never hurt anyone. This is absolutely a phish. Use that bookmark site. So if you receive something and everything looks real, don't click the link if you don't have to. Use your bookmark. I'm sure you have it, or just use your address bar, go to chase.com or whatever your bank is, or Facebook, etc. You're going to find that there if there is an action to be taken. And this, of course, is just emphasizing 1:14 in the morning. There is no human behind that at 1:14 in the morning trying to tell you something that's real. And that false sense of urgency, and of course, this link. The executive director is looking into your health insurance. Something you would expect. So from DocuSign services, you have received a secured document, shows a date and time, and it's in military time of 1413 with the seconds on the end there. DocuSign logo, view document link, and please view document and pass along to your contacts. Please see the attached FAQ as it relates to health insurance plans regarding testing for dread disease and being covered under our policy. Please read the details as it must be an in-network facility to be covered. So this is a phish. And we're going to go through and point out why. This is one of those fake out email addresses trying to look real and making it look as real as it could. DocuSign is not correct with the domain here. Secure message. View document doesn't go to the link you thought. And it's got a bit of a false sense of urgency. And I'm running through things quickly now. So hr@yourorganization.com, subject holiday policy. Please ensure you have followed the company procedure in order to submit your time off requests. And there is a link here. Do we think that's real? I'm hearing phish. Hearing legit. All right, I think I heard 2 fishes and 1 legit, so let's see. It's a phish. If you're inside an agency, you won't ever see the email address. You'll just see the sending name. Not directly, specifically directed at you, and the URL doesn't go to where it should. Microsoft Store, telling you, thanks for your home subscription, your Microsoft 365 home subscription. Your subscriptions are successfully charged on Monday. Your recurring billing is scheduled for October. Recurring billing will happen every year, including taxes, and a link to manage subscription. Legit. Got it right there in the front. Yep. There's no telling you what to do. It's just showing you that something has happened, and the URL does go to the correct place. You'll see here real quick that the subscription does go directly to where it should, to Microsoft subscriptions. But if you receive this email, don't click on it. Go to Microsoft.com or Office.com, log in, check your subscription. You can see all your billing information there. Okay. This one is Happy Holidays. Our Christmas winner Alice G. Lee has not responded to our message, so we'll be giving out a holiday package for Bora Bora with flights. That's right. This is a fish. Incoming transaction, you don't need to do anything. Great. Transaction confirmed, $25 sent to blah, blah, blah for account that ended in 1234. New account balance is $6,250. Transaction cost $0. Fish or legit? It's giving like a transaction number saying confirmed, $25 sent to PY789456. This is a text message, so type here would be the response box. This is legit. There's no red flags. It's a notification. Almost every phishing type of scam is going to have an action of some sort or need you to respond to it. Cadbury's is giving away 250 free vouchers to celebrate 68th anniversary. That's right. It's a fish. Okay, look at us. We got 100%. I am going to try to zip around to a couple of the places where I heard voices and let people fight over my lovely stickers. And thank you so much.
So, welcome once again. Thank you all so much for joining our panel. I just realized I'm going to try to raise this for not having to bend down a little bit too much. All right, can you all hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So together, our panelists here represent a wide range of expertise, and many of them serve together as members of the Consumer Protection Washington Coalition. And so we'll be hearing more throughout the panel on their work together. And also, that coalition is dedicated to educating and alerting the public on consumer issues, scams, and investigations affecting residents in Washington state. So stay tuned for more information on that as our panel unfolds. And now I'm just going to take this off the stand if I can. There we go. That's a little better. So I just want to go ahead and dive right into our panel discussion on detecting, preventing, and responding to fraud and scams. And we'll start by exploring some of the most concerning trends you're currently observing in fraud and scams. And then later I'm going to be asking you for recommendations you have for attendees here today to protect themselves and their clients and organizations. So within our audience here, we have a wonderful blend of representatives from local organizations as well as individuals in our community. And so I'd go ahead and like to ask you first, Lynn, to kick us off by telling us what fraud and scam trends you're currently observing that bring the most concern to you within your work.
So in our office right now, I'm with the Department of Financial Institutions. If you're with the financial institution, don't answer this. Who's heard of us? Oh, there are a few. Okay, awesome. And grantees don't count either. So we license and regulate the financial services industries within Washington state, mostly your local banks and credit unions, financial planners, advisors, cryptocurrency if it's a money transmitter or an investment. If it has to do with money, we probably license and regulate it somehow. What we are seeing predominantly in our securities division in particular right now is something called pig butchering. And I hate to tell you, but we're the pigs. It is usually a long con that starts with a text message. I got 3 of them while I was coming up here for this on my personal phone. Hey, how's it going? Don't recognize the number. Another one was, hey, I'll be in Seattle. What's fun to do? Don't recognize the number. I'm not responding. We were all trained to respond, to be polite, right? AARP's podcast has a great example of this in their crime podcast. If you want to be scared to death, it's a great podcast to listen to, where the woman was hit up on LinkedIn. And she just said, okay, I'll be polite. This is supposed to be a professional setting. The gentleman chatted her up for quite a while and then pitched a cryptocurrency site and said, hey, I've got this really great thing. Look how much money I'm earning, and showed her a screenshot of the site and how much money he's earning. And she fell for it. And she invested on the cryptocurrency site. Now, mind you, I know 6-year-olds who can make websites. Okay, so don't trust it just because it's a pretty looking website. She invested $500,000. She got her father to invest his entire retirement plan. And then when they went to go take the money out, that whole website crashed and went down, and they lost all their money. So we're seeing these long haul games. They come in romance scams. They're in those text message things. I mean, they're coming from a wide variety. It's text, it's email, it's letters, it's snail mail, it's you name it, they're coming after you. But it's a long haul one where they're going to get you to trust them. They're going to get you to feel like you really care about this person. And then the next question is, hey, can I borrow some money? Or can you invest in this with me? And anytime somebody who you have never met asks you for money, what's your answer? No. Okay. But COVID made us really lonely. The number one problem in America for years after COVID was loneliness. And these people are feeding on that. Okay. So it's those long scams that we're seeing. We have a flyer on our table on just about everything, and also on pig butchering if you're interested in more details.
Thank you very much, Lynn. And yes, Teresa, please add your response as well.
Okay, I'm Teresa Glidden, and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Secretary of State Corporations and Charities Division. And I work very closely with Lynn and with Elena as well. And together, we are 3 members of Consumer Protection Washington, which I wanted to touch on just a little bit. Consumer Protection Washington includes DFI, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Federal Trade Commission is a partner. Unfortunately, they were not able to be here today. The United States Postal Inspection Service. And they are really good sheriffs. They go after the fraud, the mail scammers, hard, really hard. So we always enjoy it when they show up at one of our events because they have their gold badge and their sidearm, and they look really, really official. The Better Business Bureau is one of our partners, as well as the Insurance Commissioner, the IRS, the Office of the Insurance Commissioner, et cetera, et cetera. We go all over the state and offer fraud fairs, anti-fraud fairs, scam jams, whatever the person wants to call it. And it can be as short as an hour or 2 hours, or as long as a full day event. We have done full day events too that have been very well received, and a lot of information gets out. We are going to be at the Senior Day at the Park in August, on August 7th. We were at Bellingham Senior Center yesterday. There was a bit of a miscommunication, so we're rescheduling that around the park event too. But we go to a lot of senior centers, a lot of community centers, not assisted, independent living communities. We hit a lot of those. So basically we cover the entire state. So if you contact us and we can get you scheduled and get members, partners scheduled as well, we will come and we will share a lot of resources, which we have on our tables back there, a lot of resources.
One of the scams that the sheriff she mentioned brought to my attention that I just don't even think of these terms because we didn't have it when I was in high school. High school students are being victimized with sextortion. And it's usually an adult on the other end. They think it's, this really hot boy, this really hot girl, send me a sex pic. And then that pic is going to be used to extort them for money. They have had numerous students commit suicide in Thurston County. So it's something to keep an eye on with your kids.
And also, artificial intelligence is making some really terrifying inroads into scamming people. If you get a chance, go to YouTube and search on 60 Minutes Senior Scam. They did an article on this a few months ago. There were 4 or 5 very, very brave victims that came in and actually shared how they were scammed and how much they were scammed out of. And the AI, how many people have a TikTok or do live videos on Facebook? You don't have to admit it. They actually have software that they can go in and get a voice print and clone that voice. So they will look at a TikTok video. They usually say, their grandparents or other family members are on their Facebook or whatever. They can get a voice print from that and actually clone it and make a phone call that sounds exactly like the person who was in the video. So it's getting really, really scary. It's job security for us. Unfortunately, we'd like to see them all put out of business, but there's just so many things that you need to be aware of, and we really want to get that out, especially to seniors, because they are a #1 target of these scammers.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Yes, go right ahead, Colby.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, Colby, please do share. Absolutely. I'm happy to repeat after. Yeah, and Colby, if you have something to add to that, please do, and then I'll pass it on.
Well, I was just going to add about preventing and keeping information secure. So those small businesses, when you've got a website, don't put your email address on it. Put a contact form. The more and more your work email address is out there, somebody on LinkedIn that works at the same organization, the email address is first initial, last name, boom, they've got anybody that works at the organization's email address. Easily definable with public information. So on those websites, keep it to a contact form whenever possible, because then someone's not going to get your email. If you can even have a different domain for your email, although that's getting a little technical for most folks, that is very helpful. And the other thing I want to mention is having a policy and a procedure that no matter what is followed. We have seen a lot of the scams of folks using Gmail addresses, reaching out to folks in HR and fiscal, hey, I've changed my bank, I need to change my payroll. And it's, one of the scams as old as time, and it will not go away. And without a good, strong policy behind it, someone with enough information very well may fool you. So always have a procedure that is hard to break, such as calling the person at their desk phone. Things that you for sure, and that fiscal responsibility or HR responsibility, can reach out and confirm that human identity. I've also supported agencies in the past that would have you pick that secret word, but the more and more people want to go out and put, oh, my first car was this, and my first color of that, and favorite vacation spot, don't reveal any of that information on social media, because the more of it that's out there, the easier folks are going to be able to try to steal that stuff.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much. Would you like me to repeat the question originally?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. This is all such great information. The question was, what are the most concerning trends that you're currently observing in fraud and scams within your role, your organization, the communities that you serve?
Well, as Teresa and Lynn both mentioned, we do a lot of outreach to all communities, retired communities and young adults and even children. So I do a lot. And then I also am bilingual, so I get to go out and do presentations in English and Spanish. And I've worked with other LEP communities as well with the assistance of an interpreter. But one of the things that we do see in speaking more in regards to AI is that it's not just TikTok where people can get your voice. It's any social media where you have added any type of video, any type of recording. If your videos are public, so many people do not realize how much of their information is public. I mean, how many of you have okay, raise your hand if you have Facebook. Okay, you guys readily more admitted to that than TikTok. This lady right here, TikTok, she was all. She didn't want to admit that she was doing that TikTok dance. So basically, if you have a Facebook, how many of you have it really locked down? Like, is your profile picture not public? Yeah, no, a lot of people don't realize you add a new profile picture, it defaults to public. You have to go in and you have to edit the audience. Your cover photo will always be public. You can't change it. Believe me, I've tried. And so my cover photo is always something not related to me or my family. It's like, okay, I like unicorns. You guys didn't need to know that. But my cover photo is something like that. And so, and then your friends list. How many of you have made your friends list private? Not a lot of you. So if your friends list is public, what has happened, so mine's private, but what has happened to me is that someone cloned my Facebook account. They took one of my pictures, and actually in the end, they couldn't take one of my pictures. What they did was they just created a blank Facebook, like I think it was like a female outline, I forget what it was, with my name and any information that I had that was public, which it just said like Seattle, Washington. But they cloned my Facebook page, but they couldn't send any friend requests to my friends because my friends list is private. And it's not because I was hiding it from my ex-boyfriend. It was because I don't want, if it's public, they can send a friend request to every single person on your list pretending to be you. And so make sure, go in and check your privacy settings, take a look at your profile picture, take a look and see if you have any videos that you have accidentally left public, and make sure that you're locking that down. Anything really, in all honesty. And so I myself don't even have a LinkedIn. I know everybody does for business purposes, networking. I've never had one. And people thought I was really weird in the beginning for not having. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Snapchat. I do have Facebook and Instagram. That's what I have. And so we have been seeing a lot of messaging, private messaging through LinkedIn, even like some romance type schemes through LinkedIn. And just our suggestion is always, and especially when I go out into the different communities, lock down your social media. Just make it as private as possible. Wait, I give you a chance. I'm going to give it to Teresa.
No. I would encourage all of you to follow Consumer Protection Washington on Facebook, like it and follow it. As soon as I get any information about new scams, we post it out there. We warn people about it. We share events, and we can also be reached. I don't think my email's on it, but I'm going to go back and check that.
It is, because I checked.
I'll take that off.
Your email is on the Facebook page.
Okay. I will take that off. But anyway, follow and like us. You, oftentimes I will post something that I've heard about either from law enforcement or from other people that are consumer protection related, and I will post it on the Facebook page, and then a week or so later, King 5 will do a story about it, or Cairo will do a story about it. So you might learn about something faster from the Facebook page, the Consumer Protection Washington Facebook page, than you do from the media. So follow us.
All our pages.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Teresa. And it sounds like, and Elena as well, that you'll have additional resources about Consumer Protection Washington and other resources at the table, tables in the back after this panel. And of course, hopefully you got a chance during the break to visit those as well. And I know we have one of our panelists today has another engagement. So I would like to go ahead and direct this to you, Colby, before you have to leave for your other engagement. Now, as we mentioned, there are many folks here in the audience who are representing small businesses and nonprofit businesses. And as Joe Kanata mentioned in his keynote address, the thing that scammers thrive on and that they know that we're all kind of victim to is a sensitivity to fear, whether that be fear of losing money or fear of missing out on an opportunity, a need of some sort, to secure our information or to have some sort of, transaction. And then our busyness, which we can all relate to as people in the modern world. And as a small business owner who may already be operating under constraints of time and budget, and perhaps employees wearing multiple hats, and also, perhaps being constrained by other variables as well, what are some best practices that small businesses can take into consideration to protect both themselves and their employees, as well as the communities that they serve?
Yeah, not just regarding productivity, but quality over quantity. Don't emphasize to the staff to have to get X number done in a day. I emphasize during my onboarding of new staff to, if you're not sure that that's never a problem, that staff are not required to know and understand every single threat, but they are required to ask for help when they don't, and emphasize that waiting and asking for help is better than taking a risk. Always think before you click, of course. As far as businesses, that routine training, what I showed you all today is not a free product. That's a product that I'm lucky enough to have a subscription to utilize to train my staff. But there are free products out there. There is a Google phishing quiz that is very, very similar to what I showed you all today. So when your constraints are funds to do things, look into free options. There is a wealth of information out on the web to train your staff. Repeat that training. Heck, if you want to get interesting, test them yourself. Create a Gmail account. See if they're going to go and pick up those gift cards for you. When you can't do those routine, because the platform we were using today can also do what's called phishing campaigns. So it does go out and test our staff, and we get reports of who clicked on those links, who opened the attachment, et cetera, et cetera. And then having strong policies and procedures that are followed no matter what, especially for your HR and fiscal departments or the ones wearing those hats, because the more access you have when you're in a position of power in any organization, big or small, you are going to be a higher target. And emphasize that threats will never stop. You can put every single safety net you ever want in front of any of your end users. They will inevitably get a dangerous email or a phone call or some other form of a scam. So it's emphasizing, repeating, consistently building that training and building that human firewall. Yes.
I also wanted to add, every time I go out and present, I do tell people, don't think it's not going to happen to you. Don't have that mentality. Don't think I'm too smart for that. I mean, there was a lady who came to one of my presentations during National Consumer Protection Week, which happens the first week of March, if you guys didn't know that. Federal Trade Commission names it every year. She came to one of my presentations and she just kept saying over and over, I'm a college professor. I'm a college professor. Like that made her immune somehow, but she lost almost $500,000 to supposedly the Federal Trade Commission, because that is who claimed to have called her. And, as Joe stated earlier, how can you talk to so many people and not think that you're actually speaking to the legitimate entity, right? And so she just kept saying, I'm a college professor, and she lost almost $500,000. So please don't think that it won't happen to you, because it inevitably will. You will get an email, you will get a text, you will get a phone call, you will get something, a WhatsApp. How many of you use WhatsApp? Yeah, exactly. You'll get something like that that'll make you think that you're speaking to someone that you think you know. And you mentioned something with the businesses, and I wanted to mention something, and there's just so many things I want to tell you guys that we see all the time, especially when we speak to the community and the public. It is happening, and it's happening in our state, and it's happening in our neighborhoods, and it's happening to the person sitting next to you, only they're not talking about it. And I feel like the more that we talk about it, the more that we give this information to each other. I can tell you guys how many times I've been scammed. I'm not embarrassed. But it can be something embarrassing. And we do acknowledge that. And we do acknowledge that people, can feel very even ashamed because they think, I'm smarter than that. Well, we want you to know that this is their business. Again, as Joe stated earlier, it's organized, it's individuals, it's big entities, groups of people or individuals. I mean, Lynn and Teresa and I have seen something that AARP put out some time ago where it was criminals that are already in prison that were having this phone sting, and they were scamming people. I mean, they were already in prison. Where's the money going? I don't know for when they get out, but they were scamming people. So anybody and anywhere, we don't have information on who they are. Just know, and it's not to scare you. I always tell my consumers that it's not to scare you. It's not to scare the pants off of you, but kind of, because that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to get to you any way that they can. And so, I remember what you were saying. And so one of the things that we have, I had a consumer ask me, well, Elena, do you have, because if you go to our website, which is just as fantastic as all of these websites, we have a list of every business in Washington State that has been a victim of a data breach, because legally they have to report it to the Attorney General's office. And so if you've gotten a letter or something, you think, what if this is a scam? I don't want to give this information to this identity protection entity because so-and-so got scammed or so-and-so got hacked. Check our website. It has to be reported on our website. But somebody asked me, well, that's cool. You have the list of all businesses that have been data breached in Washington State. Do you have a list of every scam? Yeah, I know. That just happened last week. I was like, what? and I'm like, it's not to learn every scam. It's to learn the signs. And so in Joe's presentation, he posted, we've kind of whittled it down to 5 signs of a scam. If you can do a checklist and check any one of those signs off, you're probably dealing with a scammer.
Excellent. Just want to add one more thing for the small businesses and when you're financially constrained. Multi-factor authentication. Do it everywhere. Unique and long passwords in your personal world, don't ever have the same password on your email address as anything else. Anything else. If they get into your email, they can just about get into anything else with most of those reset password links and different things. And not to plug a service that it's free for consumers, not for business. Google Voice. Get a free IP address style phone number that you can give out to those things that aren't your friends and family. And that can be where the junk calls go. And that can be the numbers you publish when you have to publish a number versus using your real personal phone number. But yes, always give out the fake number. No. But multi-factor is free. Every platform, just about any reputable platform, is going to have a multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication option to enable. Do it everywhere you can.
Could you repeat that?
Multi-factor authentication. Oh, Google Voice. Google Voice, if you have a Google account, you can go as a personal human, not as a business entity, and you can get a free Google Voice number. That is a number that you can use in an app on your phone. You can silence it when you want. You can receive text messages there. And so when you need to go and sign up for something or give a number to someone that you don't really want to have your real number, you can give them that other number that you can eventually get rid of if you want to. So Google Voice is the name of it. I'm sure there's plenty of other services out there. Google Voice is just the most commonly known. But that's a good option as well for keeping that personal phone number private so that you can receive less gunk.
And on the passwords, we're now told 23 spaces. 23. Okay, that's in state government, we're told 23. I'm not quite there yet, okay? And not passwords, passphrases. Like the penguin is purple, and use zeros for O's or threes for E's and mix it up, okay? You've got to mix things up. But the other thing that I'll say is, for the love of all things holy, when someone leaves, change the account password so that they cannot get back in. If you're sharing passwords amongst staff and employees for certain things, be very cautious. If somebody... Yeah, that's a really bad thing. We're not allowed to at the state, so it makes things difficult, but please make sure you're updating them. And technically, we all should be updating our passphrases every 90 days. It's a hassle, but that's why I have a password keeper. Work goes on my personal phone, personal goes on my work phone, so they can never be crossed over.
Excellent. Colby, thank you so much for your participation today. Yes, thank you. Excellent. Well, I have already learned so much from our time on the panel today, and I just want to let everyone know as a reminder, this is being televised, so if you're concerned about all these great tips and maybe remembering them or not, I believe we'll be sharing out the link to wherever this is posted to in a form, either whether it's on YouTube or a different link, so rest assured, and then of course...
Does that mean they're going to be able to clone our voice?
Now we're... That's a really good question. As well as all of you are going to have tables in the back as well for additional questions. I realize that we have about 30 minutes left on the panel, so I wanted to make sure that I heard from all of you more, of course, and also from you, Lynn, with your work in public awareness campaigns. A lot of our audience members, again, work for small businesses. And, we're trying to, of course, all do our best to educate ourselves as well as our clients. We understand that frauds and scam are ubiquitous. There's really no escaping them. None of us are immune, as Elena had reiterated there. And so what are some best practices or recommendations that we might be able to, tear a copy from your playbook on your communication strategies in educating public?
So when you're talking about working with your staff, repeat it. Just keep repeating it, and make it so that it's not a problem for somebody to say, hey, I think I got this fishy email. Hey, we actually have a button on our Outlook. We can report something. I think this is phishing. And then the IT department goes back and looks at it. Part of it is because they're testing us. We're on that same account that she talked about, the know before. Several of us failed that when they sent out an email that said, Halloween costumes are great, but don't use these. And it was a link because we're all like, oh, let's go look at the shame costumes. And 90% of the agency clicked on it. So one of the things that I'm going to say is like the scammers, they're really smart about psychology and social marketing. Okay. Let me ask you a couple of questions. How many of you feel that you're self-reliant when it comes to making decisions? Mom said the first phrase I said was, I can do it myself. How many of you are optimistic? For me, it depends on the day. How many of you feel that you, compared to maybe your clients, have an above average financial knowledge? If you work for a financial institution, you best be getting those hands up. How many of you feel, compared to like your clients or your community, you may have a higher income? How many of you are college educated? How many of you are, and you all have to raise your hands to this one because you're here. How many of you are open to listening to new ideas or sales pitches? Guess what? Those are all the traits that scammers are looking for. And we know this because AARP and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority did a survey with reformed scammers and said, how do you pick your victims? And they said, we don't want them talking to somebody else. We want them to think that they're very smart when they talked about those very smart people who were being victimized. We want them to think they've got money to blow. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I don't have a lot of money to blow, so that's not going to be an issue. But if you're a retiree, are there any retirees in the room? You have a giant target, flashing, shining red, because you have Social Security, and the thought process here is, oh, you don't have to work anymore? You must be loaded. I want your money. That's why you're a target, okay? We are constantly looking at the new stuff that comes out. There is something new every day. I swear it's job security for us, right? But it's depressing. We talked about the AI. There was a case, I brought this one up. It's Deepfake is the link on the top, the tab at the top. There was a company in Hong Kong where, and we talked about AI, there was a person who was scammed into thinking she was on a Zoom call with her entire board of directors, and they were telling her, transfer this money. It's visual. She saw their faces. It looked like them. They're telling her to do this, so she did. 25 million American dollars gone in an instant, and they found out about it afterwards. Pick up the phone. Call somebody, verify. We actually had an email come into our office where they were asking our deputy director to authorize a transfer of like $50,000. And she's like, this doesn't sound like Levi. So she picked up the phone and said, hey, what's this all about? And he goes, what are you talking about? But they had spoofed our CFO's email. Okay, so always pick up the phone and make a phone call. When it comes to family members, Colby had talked about safe words. Have a safe word. I'm telling you, they're calling you with a spoofed number that looks like your son, your daughter, your sister, your mother. And they're saying, I'm in trouble. I've been in a car accident. I need money. I got to pay an attorney, blah, 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 right? And it sounds like them because they've taken the video off of your Facebook or your YouTube or whatever. Pick up the phone, say, hang on just a second, I'm driving, I got to call you right back. Then call the number that's in your address book that you know is not a spoof number and talk to them. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to find out there's nothing wrong with that other person. Also, if they don't know the safe word, don't give them money.
As Elena said, nobody is immune to this. All of us have been victims of scams, some of us more often than others. The one that I fell for most recently is I had just gotten a new debit card, and I got a text that said to activate your debit card, enter in your PIN number. And so I just entered it in, and then I went, immediately called my bank and told them what I had done. They immediately locked the account, but in those few seconds, $500 had been pulled out. Just between the time I went, and then called the bank. So fortunately, it's a very wonderful bank, WSCCU, and they returned the money right away, but they're not ever going to send you a link like that. If you get something from your bank or credit union and it looks legitimate, don't click the link, look for the number on the back of your card, or go to their actual real website that you know about and get the contact information there. Don't believe anything that is sent to you, email or text.
Even if it's a phone call, call, even if it's a phone call that looks like it's from your financial institution, again, I'm sorry, I'm driving, let me call you back. Because there have been multiple cases. One of them was a VECU. Woman got a call, said the VECU customer service number, it was spoofed. We need to talk to you about your account, blah, blah, blah. She gave her all the information, transferred thousands of dollars out of her account. Now, because it was a spoof number and it was the VECU number, she was able to get her money back. But that's not always going to be the case. Hang up, call the number on your card back.
We also see a lot of people receiving calls from allegedly law enforcement agencies, and probably the Bellevue law enforcement back there can talk to you about that. They're not going to call you and say that there's a warrant out for your arrest because you didn't show up for jury duty, for example. They'll never do that, but the scammers will.
So, can you guys tell how excited we are? This is basically, yes, this is what we do for a living. I have done this on the bus on the way to work. I've done it standing in line at the bank because we're overhearing people talk about what we talk about every day. So, going back to everything that they said, Joe mentioned the 5 signs of a scam. Does anybody know what the first one is? Say that again really loudly. Yes, the unsolicited contact. That contact that out of the blue, you weren't expecting it. That's the number one sign. You didn't expect that Bank of America text. It doesn't matter if the logo's on it. It doesn't matter. You're going to think to yourself, oh, wow, Bank of America, they're so fantastic. They texted me. They went out of their way. Again, the same thing with Microsoft. Microsoft is not going to text you guys. Microsoft is not going to call you. Microsoft doesn't care if your computer's running slow. Literally, they don't care. We've worked with them. We've done presentations with Microsoft. They don't give a damn. It's not them. And again, then that second sign was you have to click on this link. Taking an action, taking an urgency. You have to do something now. She had to put in her PIN number to activate that card. It had to happen. So again, think of those 5 signs of a scam. This is why we can't give you a list of every scam that exists because they all dress differently. They look differently. But if you stop and you think before, like she said, I use this all the time, think before you click. Think about it. Think before you go somewhere. Think before you take an action. You're going to recognize the foundation, the skeletal outline of the scam. And if you don't remember that, I have flyers back there that says, learn the 5 signs of a scam.
Excellent. Thank you, Elena.
Something else I also wanted to point out is the FTC has a website called identitytheft.gov. And if you or anyone you know has become a victim of identity theft or suspect that you have, go to that website. They have a complete kit for you with step-by-step instructions on how to lock everything down, how to freeze your credit, and also reportfraud.ftc.gov. The FTC is a federal organization, so it covers the entire country. And if things are not reported, they're not going to be able to do anything about it. So the more that's reported, the more patterns that they can see and the more that they can go out from. Lynn, what percentage of actual fraud is actually reported?
She knew I was itching for this. So the Justice Department says only 15% of victims actually file a complaint. So, can you bring back up that page that was up there? So we're launching an ad campaign, statewide ad campaign. DFI is June 14th. It's going to be the 10 billion reasons. FTC had a report this past year that Americans lost $10 billion in fraud in 2023. So that is only 15% of actual loss because that's what was reported. So the other thing we emphasize repeatedly here is please report it. Fill my inbox with complaints. Fill the DFI file complaint form with complaints. Somebody was here saying, can I complain about my counterparts in the business? You betcha. If somebody's doing something wrong and harming consumers, we want to know about it. Let's put them out of business. Let's do some investigations. Let's find out who's doing it and stop it. The only way we can investigate and stop is if we get a complaint. That's the only way. Well, aside from our examinations, we do examinations.
Thank you, Lynn, for underscoring the importance of reporting. And also, Teresa, I wanted to thank you for sharing your own personal experience of being victim of a scam, as all of us, have that same propensity to fall victim to. And I think those stories are so powerful. And it leads me to one of my questions that I wanted to ask, which is, it's commonly known that particular groups of people are more vulnerable potentially to fraud and scams. And this can be elderly who may be socially isolated or may have, not as much access to frequent, and up-and-coming trends in scam. Maybe they're not online as often or whatnot. It can be non-English speaking individuals, perhaps people that are living at or below the poverty line. And so do you have any recommendations for those of us who find ourselves vulnerable or who work with vulnerable individuals, on how we can get this important information to them best?
So the first thing I'm going to say is we're all vulnerable. Every person in this room has been targeted at some point in their life, right? They don't discriminate. And they are out to get us. So to some extent, we are here to make you paranoid, right? That is our job. We want you to oh, they said something about that. What we know from the FTC data, and if you look at these, this is my favorite image that they use on the FTC side. If you go to their website, they have a database, because every time you click on a bubble, it gives you a different information, right? So what we know is millennials are targeted more often. They get more hits because guess what? They're online all the flipping time. How many of us, like some of us, are these dorks that have two, right? Our household is nothing but tablets. But millennials get more hits, but people over the age of 80 lose more than any other demographic. Okay? And I think that goes back to that loneliness. I really do. I think that we want to be loved, we want to be cared for, we want to be talked to, we want to be, sought after, even if it's only for our money. The dating sites, yeah. So, yeah. We have a case right now in our office of a woman who was scammed with somebody took a Facebook picture from an actual pilot. He's a real pilot who didn't have his Facebook locked down. Okay. Has his picture out there. Somebody took it, changed part of the picture to send a specific message to her. I love you. I'm coming to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And of course, grayed out the fact they had a wedding ring. She lost $350,000. It was her entire inheritance from her mother because she loved this person. She was going to be with this person forever. This was one of those long cons. He talked to her for probably 6 months, but now that she's lost everything and there's nothing left to give, he's gone. And it wasn't really him anyways. We've been in communication with the pilot.
Do you have any idea how many friend requests that I get on Facebook from retired military, usually a general or a colonel, serving over in Dubai or some other Mideastern country all the time? You can do a Google search on the image, and most often it comes up to somebody who has nothing to do with Dubai or the military or retiring or anything. So I always just delete and block.
Or if you get a message that says, "Hi, pretty," "Hey, dear." Exactly. I keep trying to get your Facebook account, but it's locked down. You can send me a message, but it's going to go to a separate folder. Like it's like a chat request, I think. So not just anybody. You could try to message me, but I may not see it. So you do have to protect yourself. You wanted to make a comment? Well, Lynn and I had a conversation, I think it was over a year ago now. It might have been during the pandemic. A woman in the area, in Sequim, was going to be married by Tom Cruise at the Department of Treasury, right? And she had been told that people were going to reach out to her from the Attorney General's office, from DFI, and not to listen to them. They're going to try to tell you that this is not real, which is exactly what we were doing. And so, of course, then she was more inclined to not believe us because her boyfriend had told her that we were going to say that to her.
She actually lost everything. She sold her home to send the money to him. She sold her car to send the money to him. So she was homeless, she was carless, and she was so irate with her family for trying to intervene. She cut them all off. So she was on the streets the last time I talked to any of her family members. And people want to know that somebody is there to love them and care about them. They're not thinking straight. And it's that urgency. One of the statistics, some research that was done several years ago, and this goes back to when we talk about poverty and money and scarcity, right? When we are in that urgent, terrified, panic moment, high adrenaline, we actually lose up to 15 IQ points. We are not making sound decisions. And that's why they say, take a breath, step back, let yourself kind of decompress a little bit, and then make a decision. Do not make decisions in that urgent moment when you're in a panic. I mean, I think we've all been in a panic situation at some point in our life, right? And then the next minute you go, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. I wish I'd have done this. Because hindsight's always 20/20. Give yourself those few moments. It only takes a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, to bring that panic down, get the cortisol out of your system, get rid of that adrenaline, and then make a decision. Don't make it when you're under pressure.
So that 7726 number is to report it to your provider. So you take a copy of that text message that you got, you send it to 7726. It does send it to your provider. And so we have talked to the director of the Federal Trade Commission, and he says that at the end of every day, every cell phone provider is reporting those numbers to the FTC, to the Do Not Call Registry. So you may think that, the Do Not Call Registry is terrible. They don't do anything. I'm still getting these calls. No, yeah, they do. Every day they're reporting those numbers. So it does make a difference to report. Even if you think it's just going out into the ether, somebody is listening to it. Somebody is hearing it. Somebody's reading your text message. Somebody is getting that information. And so, hold on. And so, if you do that 7726, it's going to your cell phone provider. The cell phone providers are reporting it every end of business to the Do Not Call Registry, which is manned by the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah, the minute you respond, they know they got a live person on the other end of the line. And one of the things that we know is that these scammers share the lists. So you're now on everybody's list, and they can sell the list, right? I mean, you don't respond. Don't respond to the text message, the email. Right. And there's so many different scams and so many different kinds of scammers. Somebody's going to get your number. There's just too many ways. Don't engage. That's my number one thing. Don't engage. If you don't know who they are, don't engage.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have about 10 minutes left on the panel. I know there's been some fantastic questions, so I was going to just, open it up for a couple minutes toward the end, but I do have one or two more questions that I'd love to ask. And one of them, I know you already touched on your interagency collaboration a little bit, but I wanted to see if there was anything else that you wanted to share that you haven't yet on coming together and the strength in that, and how you've seen some success stories, with fraud and scam prevention and response.
Well, the way that we all came together is each of the agencies that are part of Consumer Protection Washington, be sure to like and follow them on Facebook. Each of the agencies have consumer protection divisions, and each of the representatives, the partners, have kind of a niche specialty. Obviously, hers is finance. Elderly finance fraud is a huge thing. Mine is charity fraud, how to recognize the red flags, what a commercial fundraiser is. How many of you know what a commercial fundraiser is? How many of you get solicitations in the mail for charitable donations? Okay, how many of you get a phone call soliciting a charitable donation? That's probably made by a commercial fundraiser. Commercial fundraisers enter into a contract with a charity to do the fundraising for them. There are very legitimate commercial fundraisers, but you have to keep in mind that they're keeping part of the money, and there's specific information that they are required by law to reveal when they make the ask. So we have a really good article about in the back. This was a collaboration between the Attorney General and Secretary of State GiveSmart. It talks about what commercial fundraisers are, what they're required of. They are required to be registered with the state, so you can go out and look them up online. And the charity that enters into a contract with them are also required by the state to file a copy of that contract. So you can look at that as well. In the state, approximately 50 cents of every dollar goes to the commercial fundraiser. Keep that in mind. Some of them are higher, some of them are 90-some%, some of them are very much lower. You need to make the decision yourself. We can't tell you if it's a legitimate charity or not. Some of the contracts have actually been written where the charity ends up owing the commercial fundraiser because the fundraising campaign obviously didn't raise so much money that the contract called for. So just be aware that they are required to be registered. They need to stay in compliance with state law, and you can look all of that up on the Secretary of State website.
And then Teresa mentioned Lynn is financial institutions, charities, and we're enforcement. So as Joe mentioned earlier, we do have a call center. We'll take your calls, we'll take your complaints, we'll take your questions. But our job is to enforce the Consumer Protection Act of Washington. If anybody wants to look it up, RCW 19.86. I can keep going with the numbers, but 19.86. Just look that up and you'll read the Consumer Protection Law of Washington State. And it's our job to make sure that the law is being adhered to in our state. Now, I am not an attorney like Joe is, but I get to go and talk about all the stuff that Joe does.
And the Attorney General, I call them the sheriff of the state because they're also the enforcer of the Charitable Solicitations Act, RCW 1909. And so if you think that somebody is not being quite up and above on a charity, report it. Report it to the AGs. Go to their online page or call them because they will investigate it. Especially veterans charities, they love investigating fake veterans charities. And I have a flyer back there about that too. It's called Donate with Honor.
So your original question was about collaboration, and we, in addition to our state Consumer Protection Washington, I think all of our organizations also work with national organizations. So for DFI, we work with the National Credit Union Association. We work with the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, North American Securities Administrators Association. That's the other NASA, not the flying NASA. The Securities Exchange Commission. You know, it really is about working together, and our agency has been doing a lot of multi-state enforcement action, working with other states, taking action. And this is why we say it's so important to report it, right? So if 50 people in California report, and 25 people in Oregon report, and 100 people in Washington are reporting it, then we know we've got a serious player, and we all need to get together, and we all need to work on that. So it's not just in our outreach that we're doing multi-agency organization work, it's also in our enforcement side as well. And I know the AG's office works with other states as well. And I would say AG's office took action against like 13 of those charity organizations claiming to be from veterans. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. This has been such helpful and insightful information. I feel like we could next time give you a 2 or 3 hour panel and probably get, still have so much to ask you in the end. So I'd like to open up the panel and the audience to questions in the last 5 minutes of the panel. And then also just know that you're all going to be at your tables if anyone doesn't get a chance to ask the question or would just prefer to ask it in a more one-on-one format. So if we could just maybe raise hands and we can have someone run the mic around. In fact, I guess I can give you this mic. It's corded, so.
Stop choking myself.
Yeah, I'm typically involved with a fair amount of cleanup after a fraud has been committed. And one of the things that I try to
And who do you work with?
WICU.
Okay.
I'll stand up. One of the things that I get questions about a lot of the time is people saying, well, I was targeted. And I try to tell them that yes, but no. Like it was more of a phishing kind of deal that you got caught in. I was just curious, do you guys often see any people that are actually targeted? Like, oh, I know who this person is, I'm going after them.
I mean, not for the everyday person. For people who are very well known, who everybody knows has a lot of money, you bet. You know, everybody's after Elon, right? Or Bezos. Everybody's targeting them, but we don't know them. But in general, it's more of a demographic. You know, they may pick a senior group. We did see a specific target in the affinity fraud in Puyallup for the Tagalog speaking community, and it was a matter of somebody coming in. And affinity fraud is scary, and that's where somebody comes into your group and they get to know you and you get to be their friend, and then suddenly they're telling you about this really great investment product and they're getting everybody to invest in it, and if that person goes on vacation and never comes back. It happens pretty regularly. First case I ever heard of when I started working for DFI was somebody from my ex's family who was victimized in that. He lost his retirement, his wife's retirement, and his daughter's college fund because it was another teacher, and we should trust teachers. But I haven't really seen, like, I'm going to go for you because you're wearing a green sweater. Not quite to that extent, but certain communities for sure.
I feel like I'm
Yeah, I know, because it's another link, right? She said when getting sketchy email, she's afraid to click even the unsubscribe. And it all depends on where I'm getting that from. I'll look at the URL at the top. Sometimes I'm just hitting delete, you know, and you can set up, I forget what they call them, you can set up a rule in your email to send things from those organizations to junk and then just clean that junk folder out.
I was thinking on that last one too. Couldn't she reach out directly, like through another channel, to whoever sent that?
Well, if it's really who sent it, that's the thing, right? So if it looks like it's from Bank of America, but that URL isn't them, then you're not unsubscribing from Bank of America.
Yeah.
The best bet is really to delete things.
Don't identify yourself.
Don't engage.
I was just going to ask, so I have videos out in the world, like, I think once it's on the internet, like, it's over. You know, like a lot of us have voicemail messages, you know, hi, this is Jennifer. So is the best practice then to just, with your family and friends, of people who might be a target of that, just making people aware and having that, you called it safe word?
Safe word, yeah, so that everybody knows it. Make it something that's like, something that's going to be really easy for everybody in your family to remember, but not something that somebody's posted on Facebook or talked about with friends, you know, and you might have to mix it up once in a while. If somebody gets chatty Cathy at one of their card meetings, you don't want people talking about it.
Right, okay. So I'm like, what do you do, you know?
Yeah, and you're not paranoid. I mean, maybe we are. I call myself the most paranoid person on the planet. But I'm also living proof that you can do all the things and still have something happen. So I have my debit card. I lock it on the app. I keep my debit card in an RFID sleeve protector in an RFID sleeve wallet, right? I took it out, unlocked it, put it in the ATM, took it out, put it in, locked it. In that time, a random number generator spent $35 in Denmark. Now, my bank knew I was at the ATM in Tacoma, so they reimbursed it. But you can literally do every single thing that's right and still get caught. Remember the guy from LifeLock who used to have his social security number on a billboard? You notice he doesn't have his social security on a billboard anymore? Yeah, because nothing is 100%. You have to stay vigilant. We have stuff about somebody mentioned annualcreditreport.com. That's where you go to check your credit report. You can now do it every week. I don't know how long. And to freeze your credit. That's the other thing. Also freeze your credit. You can unlock it when you go to buy something. It's free, but lock it down so that nobody can take out credit in your name. Yes, ma'am.
Really quick, what's your opinion on Apple Pay, or having your debit cards on your cell phones?
So I hate Apple because I can't turn off my NFC. I can never remember how to turn it off. On my, I guess it would be Google Pay with the Android, I turn off my NFC so that it cannot be accessed if I'm not actually using it. I know there's a way to do it in here, but I can never remember what it is. It has to do with like the touch and exchange information. You have to turn that component off. But I would always turn it off when you're not using it.
Also, when you go and get in a gas station and you put in your debit card, now they have those readers.
They have skimmers.
They're inside of the
Those are called
gas
shimmers.
station.
Yeah, those are now called shimmers. WSECU in downtown Olympia got hit right around Thanksgiving weekend. That's the other thing. They will put those skimmers and shimmers on ATMs over long holidays because they know it's going to be until Monday before the bank will find it. Yeah. It's nothing safe anymore.
Nothing you can do. Yeah.
Just keep an eye on your accounts. I am very vigilant about making sure I check my credit card, my bank account, my savings account to make sure nothing weird is happening with it. And if you see something as small as $1 charge, question it because that's how they test you. How many times have I talked to my husband about this? Okay, remember Super Bowl when they had the Crypto.com ad? He got a test, $1 at Crypto.com, and I'm like, you need to call the bank right now. And he goes, oh, I'll get it Monday. Well, by Monday, they had spent $1,100 out of his checking account. So guess who didn't get to go fishing or buy more fishing stuff until he took care of that? He listens to me now. Yes, sir.
I've noticed a large amount of money out of my account like that. Have you ever seen like a slow bleed where like there's a reoccurring like $10?
I've heard of them. Yeah, I've heard of them. And this is why we have to be vigilant. You know, it really is on us to some extent to watch our money, to make sure that nobody's got their fingers in our pots.
Talking about slow bleed, so we do get a lot of complaints about that, where someone will say, "I didn't realize that I'd signed up for something," or there's like a monthly subscription that's happening, and they're getting charged $9.95. But again, they don't realize it until like 2 years later. So this is where, as Lynn stated, check your accounts. I am constantly checking my account every single day, all the time. If I give somebody my debit card somewhere and I've paid somewhere, this is why I personally, this is not an endorsement from the Attorney General's office in any way, shape, or form, but I use my phone to pay for my purchases. I don't let anybody walk away with my debit card anymore. And I'm not saying that I don't trust the person. Well, I don't. But I mean, I just don't leave it anywhere with anyone. And so I do use my phone. It's just a matter of reviewing your statements, reviewing your accounts. I am reviewing my account, my app, all the time, 24/7. The other day, somebody brought $800 worth of Jonas Brothers tickets. I don't even like the Jonas Brothers, but they used my debit card. So it happens to all of us.
And you also have to watch for, when you do use your debit or credit card and you've left a tip to make sure that it's the accurate tip. I had a waitress that got a $10 tip who turned it into a $100 tip. I was like, you were good, but not that good. So I contested it. But you have to catch those things, right? We have to be vigilant.
All right. Well, Lynn, Teresa, Elena, thank you all so much for sharing your insight, experience, wisdom, expertise on this such an important topic. A round of applause for our panelists today. Thank you so much.